All right, welcome back to We the People. I want to go ahead and jump right into this because there's been some breaking news these last few days that have not been hasn't been covered by a lot of the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, all these different outlets who have been so bent on promoting the impeachment of Trump that they haven't been reporting other breaking news that have been coming up, especially by John Solomon from The Hill, who's been uploading actual documents and evidence regarding the corruption in Ukraine and other things. So I want to discuss this. I want to get into this. I'm also going to show you some of my own personal research. I believe that since they're not reporting, we need to report and we need to do our own homework just for ourselves. As I stated before in my other videos, I'm not a fan of the President Trump personally. Before he was president, as he was, doing his business deals, I never gave him a second thought. I figured, most billionaires have some kind of shady past when it comes to business dealings. But when he became president, I decided to give him a chance, give him an opportunity, see what he can do. And so far, I have not been disappointed. There's some things I would definitely not approve of, whether it be how he talks and tweets and does things, says certain things, too outspoken sometimes, and that will get him in hot water. Even though there's nothing most of the time to them, it's what the media wants to make. Now remember, the House has been trying to impeach Trump since day one, from January 2017, the minute he stepped into the office. Every month for the last almost 3 years now, they've been talking about impeachment all the way through, going from Russia collusion to the Bob Mueller investigation till now Ukraine. Every month you can find every single major network, that's on the main media, except for like Fox News and some other ones, that have been calling impeachment. It's a consistent. So when they say, "Oh, we're sad about this day. We never wanted this," anybody who's been following this and anybody who has a brain will tell you that's nonsense. They've been calling for this impeachment, investigation on him since the day he stepped in office. And you can find this online from month to month to month, every month for almost 3 years of impeachment. Now, I want to get into a little about this Ukraine. On my other videos, we talked about, and I showed the documentation, how, the phone call transcripts we can all read ourselves. What's interesting to me is this. The transcripts are available online right here. There's nothing to them. We can all find them online for ourselves. Sorry if it's a little hard to see because of the lighting. But here's a transcript. We all can read it. We don't need, and here's what bugs me. We don't need outside people telling me how to read this. We got all these people saying, well, we've got this general here and this major, and they're all so credible, and why would they lie? It's not a matter of lying. It's a matter of interpretation. I don't care for their interpretation. I can read this for myself, and I can determine if I think there was anything wrong with this phone call. And even from a legal standpoint, because we know, as I stated before, we still have the Ukraine treaty document here signed by Clinton back in '99 that gives us the right to ask Ukraine to look into corruption and criminal activities, and also specifically if we need documents or persons involved. That's the treaty we have with them. So it's legal. So what bugs me is that nobody cares about that. That's not been mentioned. That doesn't get reported. Even by the more conservative individuals, that doesn't get reported. That doesn't get pushed enough. The phone call, in my other videos I pointed out, he did not ask to investigate Biden and get dirt on him. That's a lie. Every time I keep hearing this nonsense, nobody pushes back hardly about that comment of that, oh, President Trump asked to get dirt on an opponent, presidential opponent from Ukraine. No, he did not. He never asked to get dirt on anybody. He specifically mentioned first about do me a favor about the servers from the 2016 election, with also with the CrowdStrike, the rumor that was going around about. He told him to look into that and see. Biden wasn't mentioned. He wasn't saying do me a favor, look into Biden. That's a lie. Anybody who pushes that is also peddling a lie, and also very ignorant. It wasn't until paragraphs later, as we reported earlier before, that he mentions, and also the other thing being to look into the situation with Biden's son, about the prosecution that happened, about the prosecution getting fired by Joe Biden. Now, that's what I want to talk to you about today, that other thing of what Trump asked. Should have Trump asked for that? Should he have asked to look into the whole Biden prosecution termination thing? Is that part of the corruption? most people don't do their homework. I've heard, and I'm going to say this clearly, I've watched other news networks state that there was no investigation on Biden, that it was dormant, or that there's no evidence for any wrongdoing or corruption. Well, first of all, you can't have evidence unless you do an investigation, and if you don't let them do an investigation, you will never get the evidence. It's a circular reasoning. Think about that. Everyone says there's no evidence. There's no evidence. Well, yeah, because there was no investigation. It was stopped by Joe Biden before it even got started. So right when they were about to go and talk to Biden's son, Hunter Biden, which I'm going to show actual proof of that they actually were going to do that by the documents you can find online, they never got a chance to look into it. The investigation was stopped by Joe Biden. So you can't have evidence if there's no investigation. If there's no investigation, you can't have evidence. You see the circular reason there? You see the stupidity by these networks that are trying to push and peddle a lie? So yeah, there's no evidence because there's no investigation. There's no investigation, you ain't gonna find evidence. But people who do their own homework will find out there is evidence. First off, the prosecutor, and I don't get to the names might confuse people, but I'm gonna go by the prosecutor and of course what the prosecutor said happened, and who took over the prosecution and what benefited him and to Joe Biden. Now, the timeline with Ukraine is interesting because Bloomberg, in a politics section of Bloomberg, in May 6, 2019, said that is the one pushed this whole dormant non-investigation. It was stated, but what has received less attention is that at the time Biden made his ultimatum, the probe into the company Burisma Holdings, owned by Mykola Zukevsky, had been long dormant, according to the former official Vitaly Kasko. Now, Vitaly Kasko is the one who told Bloomberg that the investigation was dormant. Long dormant. According to him, had been long dormant. Well, we're going to find out how long was this dormant phase, because actually it was within a month of dormant, supposedly. It was within a month, but by Ukraine court's own admission. So this person who reported to Bloomberg worked with the prosecutor who was fired by the command of Joe Biden, who was the vice president at the time. And they were already bumping heads. The prosecutor and this person, Casco, was already bumping heads. There was, dispute about this. And Casco went to Biden, as reported by the prosecutor who was fired. The prosecutor was fired, and this is his word, so we have to verify it. But he states that Casco promised the chair of the prosecutor general and went to the Biden. So he went to Biden personally. And so the prosecutor who was fired then says, and this interview was after he was fired, I finally crossed the threshold on February 2nd, 2016. That's an important date. When we went to the courts with petitions for rearresting the property of Burisma, I suppose that then the president received another call from Biden, blackmail by non-provision of a loan. Then Poroshenko surrendered. So there, February 2nd, there was a petition to the court for rearresting the property of Burisma. That's important because it was after that petition was made that a month later, Joe Biden had the prosecutor fired to not look into to continue the investigation. That was a month. Now, in fact, Shokin stated, as the prosecutor, he stated that we're going to interrogate Biden Jr., Archer, and so on. So there was already, by the prosecutor Shokin's own words, that he was going to investigate Biden and, of course, Archer and the others. And that's why on February 2nd there was a petition to the courts, 2016, to do this, to go in, take the holdings, and then start interrogating and talking to people. Well, what's interesting is this, that from February 2nd to the next month before Biden interfered, that's the dormant phase. Now, how do we know that? Because in another news article, which people miss, a Ukrainian newspaper reports this. And it's right here as well. You can find this online. It says right here, it says that the PGO filed a petition to court to arrest the property of the ex-minister of Ecology and Natural Resources of Ukraine, the Deputy Secretary of the National Security of Defense Council Ukraine, Mykola Slovinsky, for which arrest was withdrawn, and other properties that he actually uses, namely so forth, so forth. The PGO clarifies that the court satisfied the petition on February 2nd. So this article verifies and substantiates what Shokin said, the prosecutor, that he petitioned on February 2nd to go in and start interrogating and making all that, pretty much all that noise by confiscating the property. And as he said right there, which again, I'll read to you again. He said very clearly for February 2nd, he says, we went to the courts with petition for rearresting the property of Burisma. And then he says that they were going to interrogate Joe Biden, Archer, and so on. So that newspaper, that independent newspaper, verifies that he did make a petition. It was granted on February 2nd. But what happened? Well, the following month, Joe Biden had the prosecutor Shokin fired before he had a chance to do any of it. Now, you remember that video clip we showed you before of Joe Biden on the end of the video stating that he bragged about it later, saying that he gave them 6 hours before he left. He was not going to give them the billions of dollars of money they were going to give to him for the aid. He was withholding that until they fired the prosecutor, this guy, Shokin, because they believed he was part of the corruption. But there's no evidence of that. And yet, the courts substantiate what Shokin said, the prosecutor, that they were about to go in and do interrogations to his son, Biden's son, and others a month before he had him fired. Is that a coincidence? Is that kind of weird that happened? It's a major connection. So, big problem. Now, how do we know this? What other documents do we have? Well, this is where John Solomon uploaded the U.S. Department of State email for that came out, and he uploaded this at his site. And you can go on this, touch on the links below to see all this yourself. But in this email that was given, this email is, of course, the subject is Burisma on the email. This was sent February 24th. So about, 22 days later, roughly, this email was sent out by the U.S. Department of State. Now, what's interesting is this. It states, per our conversation, Karen Tramontano at Blue Star Strategist requested a meeting to discuss with the U.S. Navalny, USG, remarks alleging Burisma, Ukrainian energy company, of corruption. She noted that 2 high-profile U.S. citizens are affiliated with the company, including Hunter Biden as a board member. Tramontano would like to talk with U.S. Navalny about getting a better understanding of how the U.S. came to the determination that the company is corrupt. So this email went out to U.S. Department of the State requesting a meeting about this investigation that's going to be happening, and that, don't forget, 2 high-profile U.S. citizens are on there, including Joe Biden's son, Hunter, and we need to discuss this, of what's going on. And that email, well, guess what? Less than a month later, Biden had that prosecutor fired before he was able to interview and interrogate the son and gather and do what that. Now, when he was fired, the other prosecutor came in and smashed the investigation. It never went any further. Where's the problem here? This is a vice president who's now running for president. And we already have links of corruption on his part of what he's doing, quid pro quo there. Also, withholding funds which could also be labeled in other U.S. Legal codes as far as, bribery and, extortion and all this stuff, saying, hey, if you don't do this, I'm not going to give you this. It's a benefit. And because the son's on the board, it's a benefit to him because his son won't get interrogated. It's a benefit to have his son protected. So where's the outcry here? Where is the news media reporting this? They say, oh, it was dormant. Less than a month dormant? It was right there on the 24th. The email saying that what's going on here with this investigation of corruption. We have 2 high-profile people, including the vice president's son on here on the board. We need to talk. They're going to come in and investigate and do all this. And then when a few weeks later, boom, he's fired. That's dormant? That doesn't sound dormant to me. And the Ukraine courts, the Ukraine newspaper reported that the courts did grant the petition to go in there and do that. So where's the dormant? Where's the non-investigation that could lead to the evidence? Here's the evidence that something was going on, but the investigation was stopped. So how could you have evidence if there's no investigation, as these crazy news people like to talk? And where's the dormant? Oh, it lied dormant, is what news person said on CNN when he was in a debate with one of the congressmen. It wasn't dormant. It was ongoing. It was less than a month later after this email that from the State Department that he was fired, the prosecutor Shokin, and he could not continue his investigation and also the interrogation process. Now, what's interesting to me is that phone call is relating to it because it deals with Trump wanting to get to the bottom of that. What was going on with the prosecutor being fired and what was happening? Because this was reported in Ukraine. It's not reported in the U.S., but it's reported in Ukraine. So there is a problem here. And again, the president under the Ukraine Treaty Act has every right to ask these questions, which is ignored again by the media. Every right. But this is interesting because there was an arrest made and a prosecution in Ukraine of two individuals, and these two individuals were involved in helping Hillary and the campaign get dirt on Trump in order to help her win. And this was established in Ukraine in the courts that this individual, and his name was, I believe his name was Setnik. Setnik was the director of the Corruption Bureau, who was supposed to be looking over corruption, which was brought in by, under the Obama administration and Biden. This Ukraine Corruption Bureau was supposed to be looking out for corruption in Ukraine. It was established, and this director was convicted of helping Hillary get dirt on Trump and his associates, which led to the Black Ledger and the Manafort prosecution. A recording which you can find online, thanks to the Blaze who put out the recording. This recording was done at the house of this director of the Corruption Bureau. He's on tape saying that they were helping Hillary try and win. In fact, the transcript reads this: "Did those Russians help Trump, your people? I think they did. Yeah, I not him, but Hillary. I helped her," says Setnik, the director of the director of the Corruption Bureau. He says, he goes, "But Hillary, I helped her." "Yeah, right. Then her position tottered, right?" Setnik says, "Well, this is how they write about it." Right. The other guy says, "Hillary's humanitarian aid," referring to her charity group. And then, of course, well, I'm about the commentaries at that time were not, and it's kind of muddled. Setnik says, "Trump, he's purely inner problem, issue. They dominate over external matters, while Hillary, she is not, how shall I put it, she belonged to the cohort of politicians who comprise the hegemony of the U.S., both in the U.S. and the entire world, right? For us, it's sort of a better for Americans. What Trump is doing is better for them." Even this guy Setnik says that Trump is better for America. Can you believe that? A Ukrainian who's supposed to be the director of the Corruption Bureau in Ukraine says that Trump is better for us than Hillary, because Hillary belonged to the cohort of politics. And of course, Setnik talks about how he says Setnik says he was in prison, Manafort, then he was head of the Supreme Headquarters of Trump, right? Then he was dismissed too, including due to the black accounting. After that, he was sentenced to 80 years imprisonment term. How about Trump? Did he give a blank? They have their system working there, and it works smoothly. So this guy put out the Black Ledger, which actually had a few people in there, but they only went after Manafort because he was associated with Trump. There's actually two other political names in there that they avoided and went after only him. He helped put out the Black Ledger, and the courts found him guilty based on this audio of interfering with the U.S. elections, and they prosecute him. And now they're appealing it and so forth, but the evidence is that he was there to help Hillary. The Ukrainians, the director of this Corruption Bureau, admitted under a tape that was taken at his house without his knowledge, admitting that he was there to help Hillary. Who do you think put him in there to do this? Again, this is not reported. The audio, the recording, their prosecution, this is completely biased. This is why the media is just so corrupt in itself. Even Politico wrote about this and even said Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfire. They backfired. The New York Times also reported this as well. But what's interesting, it says they reported, Politico stated, Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton and undermine Trump by publicly questioning his fitness for office. They also disseminated documents implicating top Trump aide in corruption and suggested they were investigating the matter, only to back away after the election. And they helped Hillary Clinton allies research damaging information on Trump and his advisors, a political investigation found. Now that is true corruption. Look, here's the problem. That was at the benefit of Hillary Clinton. Trump wasn't involved in Ukraine or Russia like they want to make it, where he was doing all this stuff and therefore they were trying to see what was going on. They were creating this stuff. Trump asked Ukraine about this corruption that was already taking place with Biden and all that. It was already before the presidency and already trying to find out what's going on. Two different scenarios. One is, let's help Hillary and let's get dirt on Trump, literally. The other one is, hey, what happened here with this prosecutor and with the Biden son, an investigation that's supposed to happen, find out what happened because that was stopped, and what was the reason? Was there anything that we should know about? So again, complete nonsense about what's going on here. I'm not sure why this is even being said. And again, the courts made it clear, uh, about this corruption. They were prosecuted. Here's another about the prosecution, that they were prosecuted with the black ledger of trying to help Hillary Clinton. And because they leaked that black ledger, which was against the law in Ukraine, and that information leaked. This article in Ukraine documents that, and he even mentions that this black ledger was put out in order to help Hillary Clinton. Claims that Ukraine attempted to interfere in U.S. presidential election have even reached Trump himself. In July 2017, the U.S. president wrote in a tweet, Ukraine's ever stopped the Trump campaign, quietly working to boost Clinton, which is true. That's what they were saying. The U.S. presidential election in favor of Trump's rival for the in January, the news site Politico published an article suggesting that Ukraine government officials attempted to use the black ledger to interfere in the U.S. presidential election in favor of Trump's rival for the presidency, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, which is true. They convicted those individuals in Ukraine for doing that. This is why I have a serious problem with the political system and with the news media, who failed to do true investigations. The investigation was not dormant. It was squashed because they were about to move in and start interrogations. And the call and the email went out to Biden and the U.S. State Department saying, hey, we got to do something here. They're going to come investigate, and they're going to come and talk to, they're going to come after, Biden's son, Hunter. And that email states that, and boom, less than a few weeks later, it was squashed by Biden. The ultimatum was given, or you're not getting your money. Why isn't that corruption? What is the problem here? Again, this is why I have so much issues with the media, and I have to do these blogs to present to you. And if you don't like the facts, you don't like this, then fine, don't watch. But I'm giving you documents you can look up. Look this up for yourself. Put the piece together. It's right there. Anybody who has a brain can see this, except for the media who don't want to see it because they hate Trump that much. I don't personally like Trump, but I respect him as a president. And if you don't like him, vote him out of office. Plain and simple. Do it the right way. Stop making up dirt, making up nonsense, playing a political game of the House with the lie after lie. I don't care what those people say under oath behind closed doors about what they think the transcript said. I can read it for myself. I don't care what they said. It doesn't matter to me that they felt threatened or they felt... Who cares? I want to read it for myself and make my own, determination, not by what you tell me. So I can read it. I don't agree with you. I don't care how high ranking you are. I have my own brain. I can see what he was trying to do here, and I can see from the other evidence it was perfectly legit. And the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine that he fired, he had every right to do that. Every president can choose and pick who he wants to represent in the office, and he can terminate and fire at will. It doesn't matter if her feelings were hurt or she felt threatened or blah blah blah. He can remove anybody he wants from there and replace with anybody he wants. That's what the president has the authority to do. So I don't care if she felt like, report says she felt threatened by Trump and he was talking. Who cares? He can fire you at any time. He can fire anybody anytime as a president. He has every right to do so. So stop crying, get over it, and stop making up stories. But again, we have got me is the vote that they just had, which most people should have saw. Not one Republican voted for it, and 2 Democrats also sided with the Republicans. This was bipartisan. Pelosi said we won't move forward until we have, what they have is an agreement between both parties to do so. And then look at that, one-sided. But they're still going through with it, even though Pelosi said she doesn't want to go through with it unless they can come to an agreement together and get votes on both sides. Well, they didn't. Not one Republican voted for it, and 2 Democrats also sided with the Republicans. Well, what does that tell you? But yet they're still moving forward. Complete lies, hypocrisy, corruption within our own government. It needs to stop. And until we voice ourselves and put this out there, it won't. So, this is what we get in our political system today and in our media. So, I hope this information does help. I hope you use it. Please like, share, push it out there. This is my own time, my own video blog of just expressing what I'm finding in this research because I want to do my own due diligence on this and find out what's going on here. And none of it adds up on the side of the corrupt media or with the House of the Democrats. So it's a bunch of sham. It's a lie. And I hope this goes out further. And please push, like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And let's end this with we the people having to report ourselves. We the people elected and pay for these people to be in office to do work for us, not for themselves and their own political gain. So I hope this helps. Please, again, like, share, subscribe, and let's get out here. Thank you. God bless, and have a great day.